BevVan Phillips, and I'm going to talk to you about how the physical environment of your house affects the quality of your life and your ability to age with passion and purpose. Now, I believe that our homes are actually the foundation for quality of life. If things are working well in our homes, then chances are good, they're better, that we're going to have the energy and the ability to engage in those activities of daily living that we use when we're measuring quality of life. If we can't get past the basics of daily living in our homes because of barriers or unsafe conditions, and we're worried about things like, how do I get out of bed? How do I get on and off the toilet? How do I even get in and out of my house? If you can't get past the basics of daily living because of the structures in your house, you cannot engage in those daily living activities that we call quality of life. Now, as we retire, it may be things like that second or third career that most of us over 55 plan to engage in. It could be the trip around the world that we didn't take because we were too busy working. And it could be that we're simply trying to carve out more time for our families, our grandchildren and our children, because we didn't put that kind of time in those activities in our younger working lives. But it is the house. If you can't get past basic daily living, then you cannot engage in the activities that we call quality of life. I also believe that there are certain things in our lives that we cannot control. You cannot control your genetic predisposition to certain medical conditions. You cannot control people, no matter how much you would like to. And whether you call it karma or bad luck or good luck, you can't control events around you. Things like the truck driver who falls asleep and swerves into your lane, or the ice in front of the store that you fall on and break something. You cannot control a lot of events that are going to physically and cognitively impact your ability to engage successfully with your house. But you can control the house. You can control the physical environment of your home and get it ready to be ready for you when your abilities change. Now, I am unashamedly passionate about changing home environments to help people live safely and independently at home. I am an occupational therapist, and I really do care about how well you live in your house. Now, as a taxpayer, a fellow taxpayer, I also care about how much money it's going to take to support you while you're living in your house. And so my goal with this presentation today is to share with you some of my passion and knowledge about how the physical environment of the home really impacts the quality of our lives and what we can do to get our homes ready to be ready for us as we age with passion and purpose. Ready to ride? All right. These are our learning objectives. At the end of today's presentation, I fully expect, and there will not be a test, so relax, that you're going to be able to describe how the physical environment of the home impacts quality of life. And I also anticipate that you're going to be able to name 5 key factors that you can go back to your own homes and you can talk to other people about for their homes, that you can look at and evaluate whether or not that house is going to have what it takes for aging in place. And that you're going to have an inkling about who is going to pay for home modifications. Is there a funding source for home modifications? As we launch into the discussion of the home environment and what a barrier is, I want to propose that the word barrier is a personal term. It depends on your abilities and your stage in life. Basically, if you can do it, it's not a barrier. If you can't do it, it's a barrier. And we build our homes for able-bodied people. We build homes for people who can bend, squat, reach over their head, maintain balance past the center of gravity, see and hear, and everything else. Okay? How many of you have storage in the bathroom underneath the bathroom sink? Okay. Okay. What do you store in that cabinet?
In that cabinet, we have extra toilet paper rolls, tissue, soap,
Okay.
shower.
All right. So this gentleman needs that extra toilet paper roll. What he has to do physically to get that toilet paper roll is bend hip, knee, hips, ankles, knees. I'm a therapist, I know my body parts. Elbows, open the cabinet, reach in, see it, grasp it, maintain balance the entire time, and then he's got to get back up. Home is built for able-bodied people. Okay? Where's the storage in the kitchen? Way up high, over 90 degrees here. Do you know how prevalent rotator cuff injuries become in our active population? What happens to reaching this high with a rotator cuff injury? Okay? It's like this, okay? So, homes are built for able-bodied people, but they need to be places where we're safe and supported no matter what our abilities are. Now, I am talking about changing houses. But I'm not talking about anything crazy and off the wall, because we've been changing and improving houses continuously throughout mankind's existence, okay? Familiar with this? This used to be a really nice bathroom. My great-grandparents' bathroom was built on the outside porch of their home. I was raised in houses where all of us shared one bathroom inside. My children fussed at me in high school because we had 4 people in our family and only 3 bathrooms. Oh. Change is a wonderful thing. And all I'm talking about is bringing housing in its continuous evolution. And this is happening in the housing industry. We are making houses easier and more convenient to use. And that's going to help all of us as we age in place. Now, I always ask people, why are we thinking about accessibility? I don't have to ask you, you voted, you came in here today, right? But we're thinking about accessibility in our homes because of ourselves, because we're going to need it. We're thinking about it because of our friends who might need it to visit us, and our family who might need it to visit us, our children who might want to live with us who need it. We're thinking about ourselves. Accessibility is for everybody. I'm using 2 studies in this presentation, and I'm using information from both of them. This is in your handout. These are 2 wonderful studies, very easy to read kinds of information, and very, very valuable. But from this study, it's evident that 4 out of 5 Americans want to, wish to, hope to stay in their own home as they age in place. But the study also shows quite graphically that there's really not a lot of true planning and foresight going on. It's mostly wishing. We're very optimistic. Optimistic is a wonderful, wonderful thing. But people are feeling, 3 out of 4 people in the survey, 45 and up, felt like they were going to be in good physical health in their later years. Now we look at some other statistics that we know about. 1 out of every 3 people over 65 falling, and the prevalence of falling as being a leading cause of severe injury and death. We look at the numbers of surgeries that we experience in our later 5 years and 1 year prior to death. And we know that it's probably not likely that 3 out of 4 people in this room are going to remain in good health all the way through the time that they plan to use their house. 2 out of 3 people are optimistic that they're always going to be able to drive. Now, you drive in Omaha, you look around, do you think there's a significant number of people on the road who have kind of exceeded the optimism level for being able to drive? Okay. It's probably going to happen to us too. 3 out of 4 people are optimistic that they're going to have enough money for basic expenses, and get this, 2 out of 3 people are optimistic enough they're going to have money to do whatever they want. Yay! However, those very same people were asked a question in a different way. How many of them were optimistic that they'd be able to pay for long-term care? And while they think they're going to have enough money to do whatever they want, they're not so optimistic they're going to have enough money to pay for long-term care. And what the authors of the studies took from that was that people are not really aware of what they're talking about when they're saying, I think I understand what I'm going to be like and what my needs are going to be like down the road. And if you don't know what the terrain is, how can you plan? Talking about accessibility, 6 in 10 people had given a great deal of thought, or some thought, to the home or the community that they want to live in as they age in place. Okay? And 3 out of 4, again, believe that they're going to be able to stay in that current home for the rest of their lives. But only half of them anticipated a need to make a change in the house. So again, there's a little disconnect between the information here. This was an interesting graph, and I hope you can read this. They gave a list of home features, and they said, what features do you think are most important for being able to age in place? And then later on, they asked people, do you have those features? Okay, remembering that only half of people think they're going to have to make any change. Now, the authors were so upset because the dark color shows people who have it and the yellow color shows people who don't have it. But I'm pretty excited because some of this stuff is easy to add on. I looked at this graph and I was thrilled that fully 85% of the people who were asked a question had a bathroom on the main level, and 83% of them had a bedroom on the main level, and 37% of them had an entrance with no steps. Because I'm not seeing those kind of numbers in my practice here in the Midwest. Now, this question was asked all over the country, and if you've ever lived in Florida and Mississippi and Alabama, you know they build on slabs, and it's a lot easier to get a house with no steps when nobody has any steps, okay? So I think the numbers are skewed just a smidgen. But I wasn't upset with these numbers. I thought this was progress. So again, they brought up a nice point in the study. There's a psychologist, Erik Erikson, who talks about the stages of life and how we move from one stage to the next. And the point being that when you're enmeshed in one stage of life, it's really, really hard to understand and anticipate what you're going to need in the next stage of life. And even those of us who do plan, we really plan for the next stage. We don't really plan for 3 or 4 stages down the road. But if the goal is to have a house that you're going to live in through each of those stages all the way down the road, you have to be able to plan for all of those stages. So, this is Robert Lamb. The song I was playing is Chicago, Saturday in the Park. You guys recognize that? Okay. I was the only one dancing, I know, but I'm sure that some of you recognized it. Well, guess what? He had a birthday this past week. That's right, good. Some of us were there. William Lamb turned 67 last week. Happy birthday, William Lamb. Now, this is my point. Unless you plan on not having any more birthdays, you are going to get older, okay? Me too, just like William Lamb. And I can pretty much guarantee you that you aren't going to move as well, you aren't going to balance as well, you aren't going to react as quickly, you're not going to bounce back from an accident as quickly, you're not going to see as well, hear as well, blah, 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 in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, for some of us 50 years down the road as you do now. I can also guarantee you that things are not going to get any less expensive. Anybody remember buying a comic book for less than 25 cents? Yeah, okay. So, keeping those two things in mind, if you sincerely plan to have a house that you're going to live in and it's going to work through each stage of life all the way down the road, you need to be making arrangements. You need to be opening your eyes and being realistic about your abilities and what your house really is like. Will it be ready for you at that stage down the road? Because unless you stop having birthdays, it's coming. Now, a house is just a tool, okay? It does things for us, shelters us from the weather, it's a financial, except for the past few years, it's a good financial thing to have. It does a lot for us, but it also requires things from us in order to be able to use it. Remember, balance, range of motion, sensory things. And so, you need to be looking again, can I use this house when my abilities change? Now, I use the word accessibility a lot, but I want to assure you that I do not intend for every American to live in what hospitals used to look like. Hospitals look pretty good now, okay? I do not intend that we all live in a sterile environment. Homes are for living, okay? So when you hear someone using the word accessibility, they're talking about something a little bit different from what I'm talking about. I use universal design, I use flexibility. The word accessibility is actually a personal thing. It means taking an individual, okay, one specific person, and looking at their abilities and changing the environment in that to match that one person's abilities. That's accessibility in a private, personal home. Okay? And usually it's very customized. It's not something everybody else wants to use. If you go to somebody's house and they have a lift, a vertical platform lift there, most of us are going to look around for the stairs, okay? Because we don't want to get on their personal lift. Besides, we might break it, and I don't know which button to push. It's personal, and it's not attractive to us. Accessibility in the public realm is regulated by rules generating from the Americans with Disability Act guidelines, okay, that are designed to make things accessible for that mythical disabled person. And I can guarantee you that the people they used to generate the ADA guidelines were not people in their 70s who had Parkinson's or arthritis or recovering from brain injuries, okay? They were younger people with spinal cord injuries. But the nice thing about ADAG is it makes our public environment a little bit easier for most of us to use. Not perfect, but it doesn't apply in our homes. You do not have to follow Americans with Disability Act guidelines when you're remodeling your home or building from the ground up for accessibility, unless those guidelines have been incorporated in city code. Ramps have been incorporated into city code in Omaha and the cities around us. Bathrooms have not. So if you have a contractor in your bathroom talking about, well, I'm going to make this an ADA bathroom for you, they are not designing a bathroom for you. They're designing a bathroom for that mythical average person with a disability who is not you. Okay? ADA is for public. Universal design is a really cool architectural term that's been around for over 20 years, and it means basically designing environments that are as usable by as many people as possible, okay, to the greatest extent possible without the need for special instructions. So we'll go to that same house that had the vertical platform lift and how you felt about it. If you go to a house and they don't have any steps at all, it's a zero entry, you pretty much just go on in. You don't need an instruction manual on how to go into a house with no steps. You might not even notice that they didn't have steps. Whereas the vertical platform lift, you're like, oh, ooh, don't want to touch that. So that's the difference between accessibility and universal design. There's a concept also called visitable, which is being incorporated in some cities across the country. And essentially that means being able to get a person using a wheelchair or wheeled mobility through the door onto the main floor and into a bathroom for toileting and hand washing and a couple of other little minor things. But it's so people can visit, okay? And it's a good start too. I like flexibility, okay? And this is an example of flexibility. This is one of my clients. It was an older gentleman in his 80s who worked really, really hard in rehab to get back up on his feet and walking so that he could go home and live with his daughter. And she was doing some modifications to make life easier for him in her home. And I looked at his age, I looked at how long it took him to get back on his feet for walking, I looked at his weight and some of his medical conditions, and I gave the advice that we need to prepare this for his walking abilities. We need to encourage that as long as it's safe. But if you're spending any money on modification, you need to plan for the high statistical probability that he's going to be rolling again. And that's what we did. We changed out some doorways because she had a house with a lot of tight 90s, and this is a larger gentleman. So we made it so he could go straight from his bedroom across the hall and not have to turn, widen the door. We raised the toilet because he was taller. We did not put an ADA compliant toilet because he's a larger man and I knew I was going to need this space. Pulled out the tub and put in a shower he could walk in. Nowadays we would have put a fake threshold across there. He used a tub transfer bench and this floor to ceiling pole was in there. Okay, so he had a grab bar. It serves two purposes. It helped at the toilet and that horizontal bar moved so he could get into the shower, and that worked fine. A couple months down the road, she called and she said, okay, I do want to buy that rolling shower commode chair because it will be a lot safer for him to roll into the shower now. And at the point he transitioned from walking safely to needing to roll some of the time, all it took was buying one piece of equipment. That's flexibility. And that's what I think we need to try to do if we're preparing the house years ahead of time for an eventuality that might or might not happen. So, will your home work? These are the top 5. Okay. These are my 5 based on my practice over 30 years and looking at other people's research and looking at the issues and looking at what people spend the most time modifying. I believe you have to look at your entrances first to be able to get in and out of the house. Because if you leave rehab and 2 strong men from the ambulance service pick you up and haul you into the house, chances are every time you need to leave, it's going to take 2 big people to pick you up and haul you out. And how much living are you going to do if it's that much trouble to get in and out? So entrances are very important. You have to get in there to start with. Pathways are next in line because once you're in there, you have to move around. And pathways are doorways, but it's also the ability to get through the doorway, to turn into the doorway. It's also the floor surfaces and the amount of furniture, the pathway through the furniture, and it is levels of the house. So you're looking at, can I use a path and go everywhere in my house, all these steps down the road that I want to, get to the places I want to be. That's the pathways of your house. And then we have bathrooms. And I personally decree that bathrooms are the most important room in the house. Now I realize I'm looking at this audience. I know you guys have all bought houses before, right? So you probably had on your wish list number of bedrooms, what the kitchen looked like, did it have a man cave room? Did it have a hobby room? Was there a place to put the big huge TV? You really probably didn't have bathroom on your list. You might have looked at the bathrooms, you might have gone, whoa, that's small, or, oh, I always wanted one of those tubs. But bathroom probably wasn't on your list. But part of your homework is take a look, label all the houses in your room, and for 1 week, check off how many times you go in each room, okay? Probably you're going to go into the bathrooms more than any other room. It is an important basic part of life. Remember, we want the basics to be easy. So when you're talking about heading a house that's going to accommodate activities of daily living, this one is king. Bedroom comes next, and then what I call living areas, which is every other place in the house that is important for quality of life. So if it's important for you to have, the family over for cooking, well then it's the kitchen. If it's important to have your private place where you have the latest technology and the hugest TV on the block, well then it's that room. Keeping in mind, we're talking about bare bones structure, skeleton of the house. You can always add assistive technology or little pieces of equipment later. Okay? I graduated from OT school in 1981, and the amount of technology we have available for daily living is so fantastic now compared to what it was then. I guarantee it's going to be really great when it becomes a super prime consumer item. Okay, so we're going to have lots of toys we can add on if the basic structure is there. So we'll start with entrances. And again, you've got to be real. Is it feasible? This is a home. I was asked by this homeowner to go out and see about putting a ramp in her front yard. Well, the rise here is a little over 5 feet. That is 60 linear feet of slope I have to get onto this ramp, plus a lot of flat places because you can only go 30 feet, and a lot of times you can't even go that far before you need to make a turn. Okay? Now, this is an Omaha yard. You can tell that if I shot straight out the door, I'd actually just put her in her neighbor's front porch. So that's out of the question. I looked at lifts, which are, mechanical ways to do it, and, you're blocking garages and things like that. And it came down to, yes, I could get some earth-moving equipment in there and tear up enough front porch to put a ramp in this yard, but is tens of thousands of dollars to put a ramp on the front door? Is that really a good use of money, or would that tens of thousands of dollars be better spent on considering a totally different home if this home is supposed to last through the years? Okay. Now, I'll tell you, it's also a multi-level house, so once you spend all that money to get on that level, that's about as far as you're going anyway. But you got to be feasible, okay? People imagine, when you say accessibility, people go, ramp! I know all about ramps. Everybody knows about ramps. This is not a bad ramp. It is kind of obvious. Went straight out the front door. We're able to use the porch, not tear too much up on the structure of the house in order to get that on there. But really, truly, for living purposes, here's the garage. And so you got to travel all the way like this to get over here. But it is a well-built ramp because everybody knows how to build ramps. Everybody knows that you need a foot. Okay, that's my foot. Okay, for every inch you go up, you need to go out a foot. And that's where people get confused. Just get lost because you look out your door and you go, yeah, I'll just throw a ramp on there. It's okay, check, entrance, I'll throw a ramp on there. They don't realize how much room ramps take. Plus you have to have landings. The landing's a flat place. You can't be on a slope in a wheelchair or a walker trying to manipulate the door. Okay? You have to take into consideration things like the width of the ramp. Some of us are getting wider. If we're wide now, chances are we'll be wide in 20 years and our mobility equipment's going to be wider yet. And construction matters. In Omaha, ramps require permits. They have to be made a certain way. That means that they're not $200. They're expensive. It's like building a deck if you build a ramp legally in Omaha and surrounding cities. But everybody knows how to build a ramp. There was a story in the paper just this past week. A wonderful young man, out of the goodness of his heart, built a ramp for one of his neighbors who is suffering from the effects of breast cancer. And it's a cute ramp. It's pink. But I looked at this ramp with this woman standing proudly next to it in her locker, and the ramp's like that. like that. And there's no handrails, there's no guardrail, okay? And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, everybody knows how to build a ramp. So when you look at your house and you're evaluating it to see if it's going to make it through the years, be real about ramps. Don't just imagine throwing a piece of board out there. This is another good ramp. It's got the right amount of slopes, it's got landings, an effort's been made to incorporate it into how the house looks, but it's still kind of noticeable. I like to tuck things into garages because when you have a noticeable thing like a ramp out in front of your house, you've also put a sign in your yard, quite frankly, that says a person who moves slowly lives in this house. A person who might be a little bit more vulnerable lives in this house. And you can do that if you want to. I just want to bring that up. Okay? I like to put things in garages, but you have to have enough room in your garage. Okay? This is another client of mine. This is not my ramp. This is the original door, and this door goes to a landing, which goes down to a basement, which goes up 3 feet to get to the level of the house, which is here. So this gentleman said, I have a great idea. I'll put a new door in straight into the dining room, and he built the ramp. But he's got a very tall rise, and he essentially used one 4x8 piece of plywood. So he had 8 feet of slope. And his wife got on it once, and then told him he had to do something else, which is how come this ended up being my client. Now this ramp was built from the ground up. This home was built knowing they were going to put that ramp right there, so there's not that much rise to deal with. There's a 4x4 platform, which was enough for this person to be able to make their 90-degree turn. This is a little bit more slope than that 1 foot for every inch of rise, but it's manageable and there's room to get off the ramp at the bottom. But they planned ahead for that. Difference between not planning and planning. These are vertical platform lifts. So if you're evaluating your house, I want you to know this technology exists. A vertical platform lift basically is an elevator without a shaft. It goes straight up and down, takes 5x5 amount of space plus room to get off. It runs on house current, regular house current, and they're fairly reliable now. Okay? They're very nice for people who are transitioning because you can stand on this or you can ride on this. And this is a vertical platform lift. And this might be a way to check your house and go, well, if I could put a lift on there, if I ever needed wheeled mobility, then that would be a good thing. Not everybody's house is going to work for wheeled mobility. And so a lot of times, if I know somebody, if that's the point that they would move from that house to another one, is if they needed a wheelchair, I might plan for something like low-rise, deep tread steps. Now, this is a test steps. It would have handrails on this side, but it's a low-rise, deep tread. That means that he and his walker can get up on each platform, going up and going down, and maintain balance that way. It's also really nice for people who have arthritis, and for those of us who are larger and for one reason or another can't clear 8 inches on the step. Okay? This is access. Here we incorporated that idea into a new home as it was being poured. Grass is going here. There'll be a handrail there eventually. But done from the beginning, it blends in and is just part of the decor. That's universal design. You can bring dirt in and build a berm. You can do a bridge. There's a lot of different ways to get a 0-step entry to your home. This is a little tricky to do with remodeling. Actually, I don't think you can get 0 entry with remodeling at all. But if you're building from the ground up, 0 entry is a upcoming architectural feature. Okay? And it is possible in our hilly area of Nebraska to get 0 entry. It depends on the lot chosen, it depends on how you grade the lot, and it depends on how you pour the foundation. But it's not new science for the builders. They have the skills and the ability to do this. And this is being done in Omaha. There are many, many homes with 0 step in Omaha now. Okay? Many, many being more than a dozen. I have very low expectations at certain points. Okay? So those are entrances. You can grade your house and teach other people how to get an idea about entrances. Pathways are those routes through the house. Now most of us have 3-foot hallways, and that works fine. If you take a average size human being and put them in an average power wheelchair, this is a standard adult power wheelchair. It's 25 to 26 inches outer diameter. Okay? A manual wheelchair will be 27 to 28 inches outer diameter for a person my size. So as we get bigger than me, our wheelchair is going to get bigger too. So 3 feet is standard hallway, and that's really nice. It's tricky though to, even if you make a door wider to 3 feet, to go down a 3-foot hallway and turn 90 degrees to get into a 3-foot door. You're going to end up needing to do a lot of wall protection. From the ground up, we had the luxury of sort of setting these doors at angles back there to open it up. And it was a universal design concept, because if everybody's leaving their bedroom or going to their bedroom at the same time, it gives more space for that busy hub of traffic. But for the wheelchair or walker user, it means being able to do 45s. In remodeling, that's a little tricky to do. You're talking about a lot of ceiling, a lot of headers, a lot of walls. But there are doors that you can widen out to 3 feet in your home without too much expense, as long as they're not butted up to other walls and structures. Okay? And as long as there's room for that door to go. So the codes and the standards are actually looking for clear 32 inches. Okay? And a 3-foot door gives you that. You can, lever handles are nice to add if you're going to do it. They take a lot less grip strength. One of the homework assignments I put in your handout there was to go home, get a jar of Vaseline, and start trying to open doors. Okay? And you'll understand very quickly what reduced grip strength and a round doorknob mean together. You'll probably also get into a lot of trouble, but it will be a very good life lesson for something. And the other thing about doorways is you want room to the side. Okay? And this is hard to build into with remodeling, but also when you're going home and you've got your hand all full of Vaseline and you're opening that door, when you get it open and you're standing in front of it, feel what you do with your body, right? I'm backing up. Imagine me here with my walker. I've got the door, and now I've got to back up. I've got to back up. Imagine me in my wheelchair. I got the door, and I've got to back up. So if I have room on the side of the door, I can get the door and let it swing past it, and then I can go through. So that's another nice thing. If you guys decide to build your homes, build a little room on the side of your door. Pocket doors, nice, don't take up a lot of room, but they're not the answer to everything, because a lot of people will forget that the pocket door is not disappearing, it's going into the wall. And you can't have electrical, plumbing, vents, or other walls in that space that the door is going to occupy. It also requires the ability to cross your body, cross midline. And there are some medical conditions that make that difficult to do. And right now, the handles on most of the doors are small, and they require a little bit of dexterity. Now, I can do some things to a pocket door to make it possible to operate without much pinch strength, but they're kind of noticeable. Okay? So pocket doors have a use, but they're not going to solve every problem. Same as French doors. Doors, 2 doors and 1 opening. I've met builders who are like, oh, I'll get all the doors wider, I'll put French doors everywhere. Well, that's okay, they'll certainly be wider, but the problem with a French door is that you have to use 2 hands to do it. So again, here I am in my walker, I'm going to do this door with 2 hands, okay? Or 2 hands for my wheelchair, and that presents an issue for some people. An add-on is a power door opener. Stanley got into the power door technology a few years ago, and pricing was came down, and reliability went up in the general area of products. And there are several different power door openers. Stanley installed here in the Omaha area Last time I checked, you could get it done for about $1,200 to about $1,300. So if there's an important door in your home, you know you have an add-on product, I'm hoping that like calculators, that price will go down a little bit. But you can do a remote control add-on power door, and it just plugs into the house. So universal design, if you're building a new house or you have an electrician around, have them put an outlet somewhere nice so that you don't run power cord all over the place to operate the power door. And a less expensive add-on is called an offset or a swing clear hinge. When you go home and you've got that greasy Vaseline doorknob thing going, look at the door and you'll see that the door itself is sitting inside the door jamb, making the usable opening narrower by the width of the door. A swing clear hinge uses the same door, same opening and everything. The door just swings out past the door jamb, okay? So there are a couple of doors it won't work on. Doors where the door is so close to the wall, like less than 4 inches from the wall, so there's not enough room for the hinge itself, okay? And a lot of times we'll actually cut an opening in the wall for the door knob to go in on purpose. And we can't cut that hole if there's a stud right there. So there are a couple of doors that swing clear hinges won't work on. But they're very handy and very inexpensive other than that. So again, looking at pathways, you've got to be real. You've got to look at your house and go, is the floor plan of this house feasible if I really want to go everywhere in this house several steps down the road? This is a client who had the house, ended up using a wheelchair, and wanted to get up these 4 measly little steps up to the bedroom. And we went in, looked at it. If we came this way with a lift, we would have had to move a door between this room and the dining room, which put the door in a very, very bad place in the dining room. Really was not a good way to enhance value of the house. If we looked at moving all of that and taking the steps off and making everybody in the house have to use the lift instead of the steps, and we weren't really sure, we didn't advise that, but there really wasn't even enough room for that because you wouldn't have had room to get on, or we would have been using a side load lift. We could have done an incline platform lift here and made it side load, but we were talking $20,000 worth of equipment, that ballpark, just to get up to the bedroom. Okay? And again, I'm asking you, you know, when you start talking about equipment that's going to cost that much, is that much money better spent on the costs of changing to a different house? That's a question you'll have to answer. Another client of mine, very, very nice house, sunken living room, which was awfully popular at a certain time frame. Off this living room is a kitchen on this level. The bedrooms are up these 2 measly steps, and that's also where the front entrance is. Both couples in this family encountered mobility issues in the same year, and their caregivers are taking them out the back door, all the way around the house, into the garage, and then to bed. Is that feasible? Okay. We did put a lift there, okay, because we had room to put a straight lift. But who would have thought when they bought that house? That was not on their radar. It was a cool sunken living room. Pathways again, handrails. Adding handrails can be very, very economical. These handrails are high contrast. That's black on white, so we were also working with a visual issue. They can be very, very attractive and blend into the decor of the house. And then we're talking about stairs. Piece of equipment I want you to know about is a chair glide. On a straight run, a straight stairwell, a chair glide is reasonably inexpensive. It's about $3,000, give or take a little bit, depending on your bells and whistles. So if you're buying a new house and you want to buy a house you're going to live in for a long time and it does have a basement or a second floor, go for straight stairwells, okay? Because today's pricing, if you have a curve or a landing, that curve or landing is going to jump the price of your stair glide to 8, 10, 12, whatever, because that track is custom made, okay? So, pathways and stairwells. Don't forget with that chair glide that you're getting transferred. You're getting on it and off of it twice every time you use the stairs. And you're doing one of those transfers at the top of the stairs, where you have the greatest risk for a fall, which has pretty serious consequences. This is another way to deal with stairs. These are two different brands of incline platform lifts. Okay? So a person who's using a wheelchair can get on here, push a button, this comes up behind them, and the whole thing goes up the stairs at an incline so you're held level. It will squeeze into a 3-foot stairwell. Some of them are mounted on the wall, which means you have to put some blocking in there. Some are mounted on the stairwell itself, so you have less construction because the stairs are usually built to be able to accommodate that. The trick is that this one, today's money, straight, is going to be about $18,000 and up, okay? And this one with curves, I don't even know. This was in the school, and I didn't put it in there. So it's an expensive piece of equipment to accommodate those pathways, but it can be done. Another way to accommodate the pathway between levels is to think about an elevator. And in Omaha, in some of our higher end homes, elevators are becoming a little bit more common. They don't really do much for the homeowner when that home is being assessed for value, for refinancing, or for mortgage purposes. Kind of a neutral thing as far as the assessment. So you could spend $30,000 on an elevator and it's not going to add $30,000 of value to your house. In plain English, that's what I was saying. Okay? You can add an elevator after the fact, build a wall around it, and then this is the more common type of residential add-on elevator. The floor is cut, it's glued to the top of the elevator, so when the elevator's down here, it looks like there's a floor. Okay? Can't put furniture on it, but it looks like there's a floor. And then you have this track going here. And this works great. Okay? Works great. But if you're thinking about an elevator, that kind needs to be on an external wall, unless you build in lots more support. Has to have enough room on the top and the bottom. Both rooms have to be lined up enough to be able to do that. You can't have your heating ducts running in between there. Okay, so if you've got heating ducts running through there, then you're going to have to get your HVAC people in to modify how your ducts are running, and that's going to impact how well your entire heating and cooling system works in that area of your house. Okay, so it's not just like, oh, add an elevator. Okay, but it is possible, and right now a residential elevator like that is still in the like $20,000-ish range.
Yeah, but that's $20,000 just for the elevator. But if you were doing the outside, you'd have all the construction in addition to that?
Yeah, if you just wanted the elevator, that's about that much. If it was on an external wall and you didn't have the heating and air conditioning and all that kind of other stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so boy, those dollars, you feel like the little cartoon cash register, the dollars just going woo. So that's why the bones of the house, the structure of the house is pretty important. Entrance, pathways. Now we get into my favorite room, the bathroom. Bathroom is just a matter of space, okay? You have to have enough room in there. That's what this young man is showing us. He's showing us in a test bathroom where it's 3 feet wide where the toilet is. He cannot get there. He's disabled. Give him a little bit of room, he's able to slide sideways off his wheelchair. He's able. So it's room that you need in your bathroom, and most of us don't have that much room in our bathroom. Okay? If you're planning it out, you're going, oh man, I don't know what's going to be on with me 20 years down the road. Who knows what kind of equipment I'm going to be using or transfers I'm going to be making. Rule of thumb is get about 3 feet of space in front of your toilet, and the ability to get to your toilet from the side, on at least one side. And you should be able to handle most any kind of transfer, with or without another person, okay? And you have to be able to get into the room. Let's not forget that, okay? We like to hide our toilets in America. We like to tuck them away, little private rooms, because, well, who knows? That's a whole nother lecture on why we hide our toilets. But most of the time, the door swings in, okay? if you're in a little tiny room and you fall and the door swings in, you have become a doorstop. Okay? And it's going to be really, really hard for anybody to get in there and help you. And this is not an urban myth. I have a client who died, fell off the toilet. They're pretty sure he died, he passed away first, and fell off the toilet and jammed the door shut. And it was very traumatic for his family. I mean, that, you know, I used to not really harp on this door thing so much, but it really brought home to me how hard it is to open a door when there is a person lying in front of it. Okay? So you want to make doors swing out when you can, where they don't impact fire codes. Okay? This one, all I want you to remember about this beautiful toilet is there is an outlet right here. It's a GFCI protected outlet. So again, if you have the electrician in your house, have him add an outlet by your toilet. You do not have to tell him why you want an outlet by your toilet. But there is a really tremendously great array of products, bidets, American-style bidets. And I put a website in your handout, magicjohn.com, which has, it's just my very favorite website for bidets. Because if you get to the point where you cannot clean yourself after toileting, what are you going to do? Without or ask someone for help? My thing is, there's lots of little toys and gadgets and equipment where you can maintain control and privacy of that personal activity, and most of us want to do that. So all you need is an outlet, and then you're all prepared for that one down the road. Talk about bathrooms. I don't advise you to make a roll under sink. You don't know that you're going to need a roll under sink. And it's not that expensive to pull up a countertop and redo the counter if you need it, okay? But what you are going to need is space to make the corner to get in there, okay? And I just wanted to show you, this is a Kohler sink. It's called Invitation. And we used the same sink in both locations. One was for the person who rolled, and we put false panels there. This is a roll under sink. But we blended it in to look visually like the rest of the master bathroom. And when they sold that house, the people they bought it to didn't really ask them to make a change. They're going to have one person just sit down and do their makeup there. Okay, so I thought, well, that's a winner. Another way to do sinks, limited range of motion. We stuck the sink right in the corner. These were for people already using wheelchairs. Notice in one of the bathrooms, we also brought the laundry up, because the bathroom off the master bedroom is a place where a great deal of laundry is generated in older families. So keeps it all right there, and you lose less time and effort getting it back to the place where you store it. A lot of add-ons for bathrooms because we don't have much room. Lots of easy things to work around tubs. The technology for tub transfer benches is just crazy right now. You can get them that slide, that spin, that have handles, that are metal, that fold, do all kinds of cool things. You can do lifts and actually pick yourself up and put yourself in the tub. Or you can change over to tubs that have doors. And those are appropriate for some people, not for everybody. I actually think most people wait to consider a walk-in tub several years too late. You have to be able to actually still walk to use a walk-in tub, okay? So if you have it in the back of your mind that, boy, I'd love to soak, but I'm gonna wait till I really need it, you're probably gonna wait too long. If you're gonna throw in a shower, think really hard about what kind of shower you throw in. This is a regular shower, sits on top of the floor, has a big 4, almost 5-inch step. And 4 or 5 inches can become a problem, okay? And it has a door. These are 2 examples of add-in showers. This is the one I see the most. This shower stall only looks like a good idea, okay? 2 reasons. This little triangular wedge seat here, whether it's in a fiberglass surround or in a beautiful tile shower, honestly, I have never met a person over 5 whose keister fits on that little teeny seat. And even if your hips do, your shoulders are pushed into the corner. It's just not that practical a shape for seating for us. And what it does for me as a therapist is it takes up room I need to put seats in there that would work, okay? The other thing I don't like about it is it's a thin shell of fiberglass. So it was moderately priced, which is a good thing. I like a deal as well as the next person. The problem with this fiberglass is it's not flat against the wall. It sticks out, and there's space between the fiberglass shell and whatever I, as a remodeling company, need to get to put a grab bar in for somebody. And there is a product, it's called Solid Mount, to work behind a fiberglass tub with space. But my installers have determined that they don't want to do it anymore because they have to locate a stud at the top, draw down through somebody's fiberglass surround that I will have to pay for if we miss the stud, drill a significant size hole or two in their shower, and they have one big lag bolt, this huge bolt going into the 2x4 to hold the solid mount in place. So it's a tested product, it will work, but it's just a little bit scary. So it's really difficult to get grab bars into fiberglass surrounds unless you've already done the blocking, or unless you can go around behind it maybe and through the wall behind it and build your blocking out to it. This other one is a fiberglass acrylic surround, but it's a solid wall. So it's already pre-blocked. And so we can drill, or you can drill, at any point you ever need grab bars in the future. You don't have to remember where the blocking was. You don't have to decide in your mind, oh, I bet you I'm going to have a stroke on the right side. So, you know, you don't have to come up with those weird scenarios. You're just ready whatever happens. Okay? You can build from the ground up beautiful showers that are just, this is a wet room concept. The whole bathroom was a shower. This one we've turned the corner, and you'll see that a lot in higher end houses. We turned the corner because it allowed us to do a roll-in shower with no curbs or doors or anything like that. And we had a lot of room. So, grab bars are not add-on products. Grab bar is a piece of equipment I think that you ought to consider before you need it, because if you realize you need it, then it might be just like one accident too late. I have grab bars in my bathroom. I proudly tell people that all the time. They are old world bronze. They're beautiful. They match my fixtures and the tile. They're gorgeous. And I put my hands on them every day. Okay? So you can color contrast grab bars. You can make them move. You can make them different shapes. They don't even have to be right on the wall. They can be on the floor. They can flip up and down. They can stick out from the wall a foot. Okay? And they don't have to be where ADAG, Americans with Disability Act guidelines, says to put them. If you don't need a grab bar behind the toilet, don't put a grab bar behind the toilet. If you need a grab bar in front of you so you can really pull on it instead of pushing, well then that's where the grab bar needs to go. Bedroom, short and sweet. Can you get there? Okay. Can you get there? That's it. Or are you going to camp in the living room like this lady? And is that bedroom large enough? And when I walk into someone's home and I am admiring the beautiful 4-poster king-size bed with the super long double dresser and the matching Chester drawers and the his and her nightstands and the funny little thing, it's not quite a chifforobe, but it's got a name. I'm looking at all that stuff going, and they're saying, wow, it's kind of small in here. I'm looking at that furniture going, well, I could get rid of the furniture, but I realize it's not my furniture, okay? But when you're talking about how big is the bedroom, I'm talking about the walls. And you can make some room in there if you need it down the road. Okay, so bedrooms are pretty easy. We get into living areas. Kitchen's awfully important. If I was truly, though, going to make a wheelchair accessible kitchen for a cook who was going to cook everything, it would be huge. It would be a lot more space than most of us allow for kitchens. But some things to remember if you're remodeling, bringing the stove up a little bit higher so that you're not bending down for heavy things, okay? Because you know what? Most of us don't bend like I do. I'm a therapist and I'm trying to set a good example. Do most of you put your hand on something like a hot burner and reach down this way for bending? Okay? Because your knees hurt. Well, what are you doing when you have a huge, I forget the camera, a huge lever here at the bottom and you're bent over like this with your back? What are you doing? Setting yourself up to move to that end stage a lot faster is what you're doing. So bringing your thing up here, front burner stove. If you ever remodeling, think about a stove with the controls on the front, unless you have small children. Because that way, no matter what, you're not reaching across the hot things to reach your controls anymore. And this, I think, is the wave of the future. 20 years ago, very few of us had front load washers on pedestals. Now they're pretty common. This is a dishwasher raised up on a pedestal, and I think that's coming. Because again, you don't have to bend over that far to get things, and if you happen to be sitting, it's much more convenient to reach it. So I think that one's coming. You have to have room. This is a kitchen here in Omaha. They thought this kitchen out from the ground up. And what they did was they finished the floor into this island so that if the wheelchair user, if the person they anticipated using the wheelchair needed to start using the wheelchair in the kitchen, they could get rid of the island. That was simple, and that's flexibility. Remodeling, just think about modifying how you're storing things. A lot of pull-out shelving, a lot of pull-out drawers, much easier to reach things, reorganizing how you store things. Bringing your washer and dryer upstairs. Again, if you're thinking several decades down the road, okay, are you going to wash your own laundry or are you going to pay somebody to do it? If you plan to do it, then you need to be able to reach it. So bringing that up into a room you can get to, so that then we get the bare bones of our house, so that the daily activities of daily living, the basic activities of daily living, bathing and toileting and feeding ourselves, all that stuff is done easily without struggle or danger. Then in our house, we can consider the other things we're doing. Our TV room, our hobbies, our second career, our recreation. If our home supports our abilities, we can live with quality of life. And bringing you back to funding, again, it's short and sweet. Funding sources that we're used to talking about are for medical conditions. Medicaid, Medicare, the federal program Medicare, and all the insurance companies that use definitions the same way Medicare does, is not going to pay for home modifications. They will pay for your surgery when you fall, okay? But they are not going to pay for the handrail to prevent the fall, because that is not defined as medically necessary. They are a medical insurer. They're going to work on medical issues. There are some VA benefits that cover home modifications, a couple of different programs. There are some long-term care policies that can help with home modifications, and this is something very important for people to talk about doing. I know some folks who go, I'm not doing long-term care because they think the only thing it does is a nursing home. It does that well, it does skilled care well, but it also helps you stay in home. That's really its other main purpose. There are community waivers, which are primarily for low income. Nebraska's Medicaid program is really phenomenal. We have one of the most inclusive programs across the state. We as taxpayers actually spend up to $5,000 per person per year for people on the aged and disabled community waiver. They're eligible for that much, to support them in their homes, because it is less expensive to support them in their home than it is to support them in a skilled nursing facility. And it's a win-win because they'd rather be there. But that is for low income. There's some charitable organizations like Rebuilding Together that do things like that. And then there are reverse mortgages, which is using the equity in the property we own in order to do what we want to do in it. Now, when I talk to people about funding, short and sweet, I have a funding resource page. I ran into a little printer issue, so if you'd like it, email me and I'll send it to you. List some agencies here in town that do some funding, but it's really limited. And I tell people, listen here, if you wanted to change the paint in your kitchen from green to yellow, or if you wanted to add a bedroom because you had another child, you would just do it because it's your house and you want it and it's for you. Home modifications designed to help you do what you want to do, age in place with passion and purpose, it's for you. And home modifications are pretty much going to be your responsibility. Your responsibility financially and your responsibility to get on the ball and start planning for it. And I'm shutting down, but that's okay. Thank you very much for coming. Okay. Your house is going to affect the quality of your life. If you truly want to age in place there, get real, open your eyes, go home, evaluate it, and if you feel like it's not going to be ready for you when you're ready for aging in place, now's the time to make your change. Thanks.